Did you know New Mexico once came within a single failsafe of nuking Albuquerque off the map? Or that over 1,000 years ago, an ancient civilization built a city whose roads lead absolutely nowhere? How about the fact that nearly 750 feet underground, there's a cavern so massive you can walk a full mile around its perimeter without ever leaving the same room? Well, the Land of Enchantment has a lot more to it than just deserts and hot air balloons. So buckle up, because we're about to hit you with 50 of the strangest, wildest facts about New Mexico that you probably never knew. Fact 50. A desert so bright, astronauts can see it from space. Forget beaches. New Mexico's white sands is a 275 square mile ocean of pure white gypsum dunes, the biggest of its kind anywhere in the world. And they're so blindingly bright that NASA astronauts literally use them as a natural GPS marker while orbiting overhead. From 250 miles up, this patch of desert glows like a cosmic spotlight, one of the only places on Earth you can pick out without satellites or city lights. Imagine being in the space station, looking down and seeing New Mexico screaming, "You are here," from orbit. Fact 49. The official alien crash site. In 1947, New Mexico became ground zero for the world's most famous UFO crash. Locals near Roswell swore they saw a flying saucer go down in the desert, complete with strange debris the military quickly scooped up. The government story? Just a weather balloon. But decades of leaked reports, deathbed confessions, and lost files have turned Roswell into the ultimate conspiracy magnet. Today, the town basically runs on alien tourism, with an official crash site, UFO museums, and even street lamps shaped like little green men. Love it or laugh at it, Roswell is proof that New Mexico might just be America's strangest welcome mat to the universe. Fact 48. The town named after a game show. New Mexico has a town that literally renamed itself Truth or Consequences. No, that's not a metaphor, it's the official name. Back in 1950, the host of a popular radio show offered to air a special episode from the first town willing to take on the show's title. Hot Springs, New Mexico said, "Why not?" and changed its name overnight. More than 70 years later, people still live in Truth or Consequences, a place where the welcome sign looks like a dare and the map reads like a punchline. It's one of the only towns in America that proves sometimes reality is stranger than reality TV. Fact 47. The ghost lizard of White Sands. Coming back to the White Sands desert, even the animals here had to get weird. The bleached, earless lizard literally evolved into a ghost. No ears, almost pure white skin, and the ultimate disappearing act. When danger shows up, it doesn't run. It just melts into the blinding dunes and buries itself like a magician vanishing on cue. Scientists call it adaptive camouflage. But let's be honest, this lizard basically said, "Fine, I'll become sand." Nature went full ghost mode. And the result is a reptile that looks like it crawled straight out of a sci-fi movie. Fact 46. An underground room bigger than a city block. Deep in Carlsbad Caverns sits the so-called Big Room. But that name is selling it short. This single underground chamber is over 4,000 feet long, 625 feet wide, and tall enough to fit the US Capitol dome inside it without even grazing the ceiling. In fact, walking the full loop around its perimeter is a mile-long hike, all while you're in the same room. Picture wandering through 16 football fields stacked together, except you're hundreds of feet underground in a cathedral carved by water over millions of years. It's less a cave and more like Mother Nature's attempt at building her own indoor stadium. Fact 45. A building made of uranium. During the uranium mining boom in the mid-1900s, New Mexico was so flush with radioactive rock that people actually built houses, schools, and even parts of public buildings using mine waste. One structure in Grants was later found to be giving off dangerously high levels of radiation just from its walls. Entire communities had to demolish or seal off buildings because they were literally made of uranium tailings. It's one of those "what were they thinking" moments that shows New Mexico's boomtown past was as reckless as it was radioactive. Fact 44. A volcanic plain the size of a small country. New Mexico isn't just deserts. It's sitting on a volcanic field so massive it could swallow entire nations. The Taos Plateau stretches across more than 7,000 square kilometers, and most people drive right over it without even realizing they're crossing one of the largest volcanic zones in North America. Its crown jewel, San Antonio Mountain, towers nearly 11,000 feet high, meaning you're literally standing on the frozen remains of an ancient supervolcano system. Next time you see what looks like an ordinary plain in northern New Mexico, remember, you're standing on top of a country-sized volcanic battlefield. Fact 43, where two cracks in the earth throw a lava party. The Taos Plateau became a volcanic playground because two massive faults in Earth's crust literally collided here. On one side, the Rio Grande Rift rips north to south. On the other, the Jemez Lineament slices east to west. When they crossed, magma basically said, "Sweet, two exits," and exploded onto the surface. The result? Land littered with shield volcanoes, lava domes, and cinder cones scattered across the desert like geological confetti. It's what happens when the planet gives molten rock multiple escape routes and it throws a million-year-long rave. Fact 42, the textbook volcano you can drive into. Capulin Volcano in northeast New Mexico looks so perfectly shaped it could be a geology teacher's desktop model, except it's over 1,000 feet tall and spread across 15 square miles. Scientists call it one of the most flawless cinder cones on Earth. The craziest part? This ancient volcano last erupted just 56,000 years ago, a blink of an eye in geologic time. And today, you can literally drive your car up the side and park on the rim to stare straight into its crater. It's like taking a family road trip directly into the mouth of a textbook volcano. Fact 41, the day New Mexico almost nuked half the West. About 1.25 million years ago, New Mexico wasn't just hot, it went full apocalyptic. The Valles Caldera supervolcano erupted with 95 cubic miles of magma, enough molten rock to bury all of Rhode Island under 60 feet of lava. The blast was so violent the entire volcanic core collapsed in on itself, leaving behind a 12 by 14 mile crater that still scars the land today. And the fallout doesn't stop there. Volcanic ash rained down as far as Kansas and Utah, giving half the American West an accidental makeover. Today, it's all rolling meadows and hiking trails. But don't be fooled, you're standing on top of one of the most dangerous sleeping giants in the country. Fact 40, New Mexico's secret desert freezer. In the Zunay Bandera volcanic field, nature pulled off the ultimate prank. It hid a freezer in the middle of the desert. Outside, summer temperatures fly into the triple digits, but step into the lava tubes below and the air instantly drops to freezing. No AC required. Ancient lava flows cooled in just the right way to create a natural insulation system, trapping blocks of ice that survive year-round. Imagine hiking through scorching desert heat, then stumbling into a cave full of ice like you just found nature's walk-in freezer. It's one of the last places on Earth you'd expect to need a jacket. Fact 39, a 50-mile lava highway frozen in time. In New Mexico's Valley of Fires, a black river of lava stretches for nearly 50 miles. And it looks so fresh you'd think it erupted last week. In reality, this volcanic outburst happened about 5,000 years ago, which in geologic time, once again, is basically yesterday. The basalt is so sharp, jagged, and unweathered that hikers say it feels like walking through a freshly cooled apocalypse. Imagine driving across the desert and suddenly hitting a lava flow that looks like the earth pressed pause mid-eruption. That's Carrizozo. Fact 38, the alien fortress that's really a volcano fossil. In northwest New Mexico, Ship Rock rises 1,500 feet out of the desert like an alien fortress. But here's the twist, it's not a mountain at all. It's the exposed heart of an ancient volcano. Millions of years ago, this was magma buried deep underground. When the rest of the volcano eroded away, the hardened throat was left standing. Even stranger, dark ridges snake out from its base like giant stone spider legs. These are volcanic dikes, the ancient plumbing system that once fed the eruption. Fact 37, New Mexico used to be the Caribbean. Believe it or not, millions of years ago, New Mexico wasn't desert. It was beachfront property. During the Paleozoic era, southern and western New Mexico were completely submerged beneath a tropical sea so massive it made the modern Caribbean look like a puddle. Today, it's cacti and mesas, but back then, Albuquerque would have been prime scuba diving real estate. Fact 36, New Mexico's bottomless-looking desert pool. In the middle of bone-dry desert, New Mexico hides a pool so blue and so perfect it looks fake. Santa Rosa's blue hole stays at a constant 62 degrees Fahrenheit all year. freezing in summer, warm in winter, and pumps out 3,000 gallons of fresh water every minute. From above, it's an 80-foot wide circle of crystal water. But dive in, and the pool suddenly widens into a bell-shaped abyss over 80 feet deep. It's so surreal that scuba divers fly in from around the world just to sink into what looks like a bottomless well, carved into the desert floor. Fact 35. Elephant Butte Reservoir was once the world's largest. Back in 1916, New Mexico made international headlines by creating something absolutely massive: the world's largest man-made reservoir. When engineers finished the Elephant Butte Dam, they had tamed the Rio Grande and created a massive lake capable of storing a mind-boggling 2,065,010 acre-feet of water. To put that in perspective, that's enough water to cover the entire state of Rhode Island under about 3 feet of water. This wasn't just about creating a really big lake for weekend boat trips. The Elephant Butte project was actually the first major attempt to fairly distribute Rio Grande water between southern New Mexico, Texas, and Mexico. The dam later got upgraded with hydroelectric facilities, proving that New Mexico is way ahead of the curve when it comes to renewable energy. Fact 34. New Mexico's bottomless lakes that trick the eye. Near Roswell, New Mexico hides a chain of emerald green sinkhole lakes that early cowboys swore were portals to the center of the earth. They tied their ropes together, lowered them in, and never hit bottom. So the legend of the bottomless lakes was born. The truth? The deepest is only about 90 feet. But here's the twist. The crystal water is so clear and the algae is so bright that the depths look infinite even today. It's like staring into a glowing green abyss in the middle of the desert, and your brain refuses to believe it has an end. Fact 33. The bottomless lakes are all secretly connected. Here's the real curveball behind New Mexico's so-called bottomless lakes. They're not separated at all. Beneath the gypsum bedrock, hidden rivers snake through limestone caverns, linking the lakes together. Fresh water is pushed upward by natural artesian pressure, bubbling into the sinkholes like underground fountains. That's why the lakes never dry out, even during brutal droughts. As mentioned, cowboys once thought the lakes were endless abysses. But the truth is even crazier. It's a secret plumbing system that's been running flawlessly for thousands of years. No human maintenance required. Fact 32. Carlsbad Caverns were carved by acid, not water. Most caves are shaped by rain dripping down over millions of years, but Carlsbad Caverns broke the rules. They were carved from the bottom up by underground acid. Here's how. Ancient oil basins deep below New Mexico leaked hydrogen sulfide gas, which rose through the rock and mixed with groundwater. That chemical cocktail created sulfuric acid, turning the entire water table into a massive underground acid bath. Instead of water slowly dripping stalactites, you got acid literally eating limestone alive and hollowing out giant rooms. The result? Carlsbad and nearby Lechugia Cave. Alien-looking caverns born from one of nature's weirdest chemistry experiments. Fact 31. The ghost town beneath New Mexico's largest lake. When engineers built Elephant Butte Dam in 1916, they didn't just create New Mexico's biggest reservoir. They drowned an entire town to do it. The community of Hot Springs, now Truth or Consequences, was forced to relocate as the rising waters swallowed homes, businesses, and even cemeteries. To this day, when droughts drop the lake level, ghostly remains of the old settlement, crumbling foundations, fences, even headstones, reappear from the depths. Imagine boating across the lake and realizing you're floating above an underwater ghost town. Fact 30. New Mexico's prehistoric demon fish. Forget sharks. 300 million years ago, New Mexico's shallow tropical seas were stalked by a monster with one of the most metal names in history, Demodontiscus, the demon-toothed disc. This 4-foot predator cruised the ancient waters with a mouthful of nightmare teeth, basically serving as the great white shark of its era, except meaner and uglier. Fossils show it was one of the earliest ancestors of all modern bony fish, meaning every tuna, salmon, and goldfish today can trace its family tree back to this prehistoric demon. Fact 29. One of America's scariest bridges. Northwest of Taos, the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge hangs 565 feet above a black abyss, making it one of the highest bridges in the United States. From the middle, the view is so extreme that even seasoned climbers and bungee jumpers admit it makes their stomachs flip. Beneath your feet, the Rio Grande has carved an 800-foot gash straight through ancient lava fields, leaving sheer basalt cliffs that look like the walls of a giant cathedral. Standing on the bridge doesn't feel like sightseeing. It feels like hovering over the entrance to the underworld. Fact 28. A lava history book carved into stone. What makes the Rio Grande Gorge even more spectacular is the story written in its walls. Millions of years of volcanic history carved open like a textbook. As the river sliced deeper and deeper, it exposed stacked layers of ancient lava flows, each one a frozen chapter from a different eruption millions of years apart. In some spots, the walls even form perfect hexagonal columns. Like nature built its own honeycomb out of cooled magma. Every layer, every column, is a page of New Mexico's volcanic past. A natural history book carved into solid rock. Fact 27. A river that drops 10,000 feet. We're not done with the Rio Grande just yet. It pulls off one of the wildest transformations of any river in America. It starts high in Colorado's snowy San Juan Mountains, then plunges nearly 10,000 feet down into New Mexico's desert basins. That's like dropping from Mount Everest base camp to sea level, all within a single river. Along the way, it carries pure alpine snowmelt into cactus country, turning dry valleys into oases, and feeding cottonwoods hundreds of miles from the nearest glacier. It's basically nature's ultimate irrigation system, connecting two worlds that couldn't be more different. Fact 26. The Blue Hole hides a secret underwater labyrinth. That perfect desert pool we called the Blue Hole? It's just the front door. Beneath it lies a massive underwater labyrinth, a honeycomb of sinkholes and caverns that stretch far beyond what you see at the surface. Only expert cave divers dare go in, threading through narrow passageways where one wrong move could mean no way back. From above, it looks like a crystal blue swimming hole, but in reality, it's the gateway to a flooded underground world, New Mexico's own hidden Atlantis. Fact 25. New Mexico's supervolcano left its signature in Iowa. Remember that massive Valles Caldera eruption we talked about earlier? Well, it didn't just blast New Mexico. It dusted half the country. About 1.25 million years ago, ash clouds from the explosion rode prehistoric winds all the way to Utah, Nebraska, and even Iowa, over 800 miles away. That's how powerful it was. One volcanic tantrum in New Mexico literally signed its name across the Midwest. And the wild part? You can still see those thin white ash layers today in road cuts and rock walls. A million-year-old autograph from a volcano that nearly nuked the Southwest. Fact 24. New Mexico built the world's first spaceport. Forget Roswell. New Mexico actually launched the future. Just outside Truth or Consequences sits Spaceport America, the world's first purpose-built commercial spaceport. From here, Virgin Galactic has already launched tourists into space, and the site is designed to handle everything from rocket tests to suborbital joyrides. The runway is 2 miles long, built in the middle of the desert so spacecraft can land safely. Locals joke it's the only airport in the world where your boarding pass might literally say outer space. Fact 23. New Mexico is older than Mexico. Here's a history twist most people can't wrap their heads around. New Mexico actually got its name before Mexico did. Spanish explorers in the 1500s called the region Nuevo Mexico because it reminded them of the Aztec heartland. But the country of Mexico didn't officially adopt the name until 1821, over 300 years later. So technically, Mexico was named after New Mexico, not the other way around. Next time someone says New Mexico, you can drop the bombshell that the new one is actually older. Fact 22. New Mexico's Mars on Earth. If you want to see Mars without leaving Earth, head to New Mexico's Bestide de Nazin Wilderness. This Badlands desert is filled with rock formations so bizarre, NASA has literally studied it as a Mars lookalike. Over millions of years, wind and water sculpted stone into giant mushrooms, thin spires, and balanced rocks that look like they're defying gravity. Some formations look like alien totems, others like cracked eggs scattered across the desert floor. It's less a hiking trail and more like stepping onto another planet. No spacesuit required. Fact 21. New Mexico's ancient laser calendar. 1,000 years ago, the Puebloan people built something on Fajada Butte that barely looks real. A sun dagger. 3 giant stone slabs were positioned so that beams of sunlight can cut across spiral carvings with laser-like precision, perfectly marking solstices and equinoxes. This wasn't decoration. It was a solar calendar that told farmers exactly when to plant and harvest. It worked flawlessly for centuries, like a stone computer powered by the sun. Even today, archaeologists still argue how such precise engineering was pulled off without modern tools. Fact 20. America's first wild experiment. Nearly a century ago, New Mexico did something no one else in the world had tried. It invented the idea of leaving nature completely untouched. In 1924, conservationist Aldo Leopold pushed the U.S. Forest Service to lock away 500,000 acres of the Gila River headwaters as the world's first official wilderness area. No roads, no logging, no development, just pure, raw land. That radical move became the blueprint for America's entire wilderness system, which now shields over 111 million acres nationwide. In other words, every time you step into a wilderness area anywhere in the U.S., you're walking in New Mexico's footsteps. Fact 19. Footprints that rewrote history. In 2017, researchers at White Sands stumbled on something that shook archaeology to its core. Human footprints pressed into an ancient lakebed that are over 23,000 years old. That's thousands of years earlier than we thought people ever set foot in North America. These Ice Age prints weren't just left by humans. They were surrounded by tracks of mammoths and giant sloths, frozen together in time like a prehistoric crime scene. For decades, schoolbooks taught that the Clovis culture was the first Americans. These footprints blew that theory to pieces, proving people were already roaming New Mexico when megafauna still ruled the land. Fact 18. Rocks older than dinosaurs by 1 billion years. Beneath your feet in New Mexico lies stone that's almost 2 billion years old, literally half the age of the Earth itself. These rocks were forged when life on this planet was nothing but microscopic slime, long before dinosaurs, trees, or even oxygen-rich air existed. To put that in perspective, dinosaurs only ruled for 165 million years. These rocks sat here undisturbed for 200 million years longer than that. It's like standing on Earth's original backbone, a piece of the planet's childhood still frozen under the desert. Fact 17. New Mexico's telescope needs its own railroad to work. In the desert near Socorro, New Mexico, sits one of the most extreme scientific instruments on Earth. 27 massive satellite dishes arranged in a giant Y shape, each one the size of a house and weighing 230 tons. They don't just sit there either. Every dish rides on custom railroad tracks so engineers can literally move mountains of metal across the desert. When spread to their maximum distance, the very large array acts like a telescope 22 miles wide, with vision sharp enough to spot a golf ball from 150 kilometers away. In other words, New Mexico built a machine that lets us eavesdrop on the universe, listening for quasars, galaxies, and maybe even signals that aren't supposed to be out there. Fact 16. The world's first nuclear test happened in New Mexico. At exactly 5:30 a.m. on July 16, 1945, New Mexico's Jornada del Muerto desert was transformed forever by a flash brighter than the sun and hotter than its core. The Trinity test, the world's first atomic bomb detonation, unleashed 18.6 kilotons of explosive power that instantly vaporized a 100-foot steel tower and turned the surrounding land into something that had never existed on Earth before. The intense heat and radiation didn't just destroy everything in the immediate blast zone, it performed a kind of atomic alchemy, fusing sand and asphalt into a new mineral called trinitite. This eerie green glass, formed in the split second of nuclear fusion, created a radioactive crater that glowed like an otherworldly emerald in the desert. Fact 15. A nuclear test with 500,000 unwitting neighbors. The US government picked New Mexico's Jornada del Muerto desert for the world's first atomic bomb test because it was supposedly remote. Except it wasn't. At the moment of the Trinity blast, nearly 500,000 people were living within 150 miles of ground zero, and some ranching families were just 12 miles away. That's close enough to have their windows shatter and their skin feel the heat. The government didn't warn a single one of them. No evacuation, no heads up, just a nuclear explosion in their backyard. Fact 14. Santa Fe is America's oldest state capital. Forget Plymouth Rock. When the Pilgrims were still crossing the Atlantic in 1620, Santa Fe had already been governing for 13 years. Founded in 1607 as the capital of Nuevo Mexico, it's the oldest state capital in the United States. By 1610, the Palace of the Governor was holding official meetings, while Boston and New York weren't even on the map. Translation: the American Southwest was running politics long before the Founding Fathers ever showed up on the scene. Fact 13. The world's youngest desert giants. They may look ancient, but the dazzling white dunes of white sands are basically newborns in geological time. These massive gypsum waves started forming less than 10,000 years ago. Their origin story? When ancient Lake Otero dried up, it left behind thick layers of gypsum. New Mexico's relentless winds shredded that mineral into powder-fine crystals and sculpted them into the largest gypsum dune field on Earth. So while most of New Mexico's land is hundreds of millions of years old, White Sands is practically still in its crib. Fact 12. Missile tests and dunes collide. Did you know that White Sands is the only national park that closes for missile tests? Since the famous White Dunes sit smack in the middle of White Sands missile range, park rangers have to clear out visitors whenever the military decides to test their latest high-tech weaponry. It's probably the only place on Earth where you might be building sandcastles one minute and watching missile contrails streak across the sky the next. Fact 11. The day Albuquerque almost got nuked by accident. On May 27, 1957, a U.S. Air Force bomber flying over New Mexico accidentally dropped a live nuclear bomb near Albuquerque. Yes, an actual 42,000-pound Mark 17 hydrogen bomb just slipped out of the plane. Luckily, it was one of the first nukes built with failsafes that stopped the nuclear core from detonating. Because if it had, Albuquerque might not exist today. Still, the bomb's conventional explosives went off, carving a 25-foot wide crater in the desert floor and giving New Mexico the ultimate near-apocalypse story. One engineering win, one luck save. Fact 10. The sky turns into a river of bats. Every summer night at Carlsbad Caverns, the desert sky explodes with one of the wildest natural spectacles on Earth. Hundreds of thousands of Brazilian free-tailed bats launch out of the cave in a swirling, miles-long black tornado that twists and ripples across the horizon. It looks less like animals and more like the sky itself is moving. And it's not just for show. This living storm devours tons of insects every single night, acting as New Mexico's free, all-natural pest control. Come winter, the entire colony vanishes south, leaving the caverns dead silent until their spring return. Fact 9. New Mexico's frozen dinosaur freeway. At Clayton Lake State Park, a spillway peeled back the earth to reveal hundreds of 100-million-year-old dinosaur tracks. And these aren't just random footprints. You can see actual slip marks where predators and giant sauropods lost their footing in the mud. Entire trackways stretch across the rock like a prehistoric traffic jam, letting you literally walk in the footsteps of dinosaurs. Imagine a massive theropod stalking through a lagoon while long-necked giants trudge past, totally unaware they were leaving behind one of New Mexico's coolest time capsules. Fact 8. New Mexicans drive over ancient ash. Your daily commute in New Mexico is literally driving through a super volcanic disaster zone. Those pale, chalky layers you see in road cuts around Albuquerque and Santa Fe, that's not just random rock. You're cruising through volcanic ash beds from the massive Valles eruption that happened over 1 million years ago. These quiet, unassuming layers tell the story of the day 95 cubic miles of magma violently reshaped the land, sending ash clouds hundreds of miles across the continent. So, next time you're stuck in traffic on I-25, remember, you're sitting on top of one of the most catastrophic volcanic events in North American history. Fact 7. New Mexico's stone forest of oddities. The Bistai Dinazin Wilderness looks like a place where Earth stopped following the rules. Here, you'll find giant stone mushrooms, rocks cracked open like alien eggs, and even petrified tree stumps still standing after 200 million years. Wind and water carved the softer layers away, leaving these bizarre shapes perfectly balanced in the desert. The result is an environment so surreal it feels more like a natural sculpture garden than geology, the kind of place where you half expect to see dinosaurs or astronauts wandering through. Fact 6. High capital, high cuisine. Santa Fe isn't just America's oldest state capital, it's also the highest at roughly 7,000 feet above sea level. That altitude does more than make tourists winded. It actually intensifies flavors and gives Santa Fe's legendary chili sauces an extra punch. The thin mountain air concentrates aromas and makes spices hit harder, which is perfect for a city built on chili peppers that can make grown adults tear up. Come autumn, the entire city is perfumed with roasting green chilies, a scent so distinctive that locals joke they can smell home from miles away. So when you're gasping for breath and having your taste buds blown away at the same time, remember that Santa Fe's elevation is pulling double duty. Fact 5. Most coveted peppers. Speaking of chilies, New Mexico doesn't just use them. It grows the best ones in the entire country. The state reigns as America's undisputed chili pepper capital, with the small town of Hatch earning the official title of Green Chili Capital of the World. As we just mentioned, the state's unique combination of high desert climate, mineral-rich soil, and precise elevation creates chilies with a distinctive flavor profile that simply can't be replicated anywhere else on Earth. It's like terroir for wine, except instead of grapes, we're talking about peppers. These New Mexican chilies are so prized that chefs nationwide specifically seek them out. And locals get genuinely offended when restaurants try to substitute inferior peppers from other states. Fact 4. Texas tried to invade New Mexico and it went very wrong. In 1841, the Republic of Texas decided it wanted a piece of New Mexico and hatched what might be the most poorly planned military expedition in American history. Texas President Mirabeau Lamar sent what he called a trading expedition to Santa Fe. Except this peaceful mission included a suspiciously large detachment of armed men with artillery. The expedition was doomed from the start. They brought half the food they needed, lost their guide, and spent months wandering in the wilderness. By the time the group finally stumbled into New Mexico, they were so pathetic that the waiting Mexican forces probably felt sorry for them. The entire Texas expedition was captured without firing a shot and forced to march to Mexico City, a humiliating 1,000-mile walk of shame that proved Texas had seriously overestimated its military prowess. Fact 3. New Mexico has more ghost towns than living towns. Here's a stat that sounds fake but isn't. New Mexico has over 400 ghost towns, more than the number of towns people actually live in today. Most were mining boom towns that exploded overnight when silver, gold, or turquoise was discovered, then collapsed just as fast when the minerals ran out. What's left are entire towns frozen in time, empty saloons, crumbling churches, and houses being slowly swallowed by desert sand. Drive across New Mexico and you'll pass more abandoned communities than living ones, making the state feel like the world's largest open-air ghost museum. Fact 2. New Mexico's ancient city with roads to nowhere. Over 1,000 years ago, the ancestral Puebloans built Chaco Canyon, a massive city of multi-story stone buildings and roads so straight they cut across the desert for miles. But here's the bizarre part. Many of those roads lead absolutely nowhere. They don't connect to other cities, rivers, or trade routes. They just vanish into the wilderness. Archaeologists still debate whether these were ceremonial highways, spiritual pathways, or something we'll never fully understand. To this day, Chaco remains one of America's greatest archaeological mysteries, a lost city hidden in plain sight in New Mexico. Fact 1. Petrified forests hide ancient tree stumps still standing upright. Hidden in the colorful badlands of northwest New Mexico's San Juan Basin lies one of the most haunting sites in paleontology. An entire ancient forest turned to stone, with some trees still standing exactly where they grew 200 million years ago. The fossil forest preserves not just scattered pieces of petrified wood, but actual upright tree stumps frozen in time like geological ghosts. These stone sentinels are scattered among cliffs and hoodoos, creating an environment that feels like stepping into a petrified fairy tale. What makes this place truly mind-bending is imagining what it looked like when these trees were alive, a lush, tropical forest where early dinosaurs wandered beneath towering canopies that would eventually transform into the colorful stone stumps we see today. What about 50 wild facts about Utah that sound fake?